So we'll be looking for the recording and just see if that's okay. But I want this to be as interactive as possible. So please, stop, and we can certainly have a chat with any, with any topics, anything that come up. So I've got just a few slides for you today, if that's okay. I'll take it out my Facebook and into my Canva. So today, thank you very much for coming, first of all. So today we are going to chat about inflammation. And you may have heard this term about a wee bit more. It's certainly a term that's been used a wee bit more, certainly in relation to chronic health conditions, which is, obviously what I'm really passionate about. So the root of any health condition, whether it's a physical condition like arthritis, like I have, or whether it's a psychological condition, is the root of it is inflammation. And whether that's inflammation in your gut, in your brain, in your chest, in your whatever organ that may be, whatever part of your body that may be, at the root of it is all about inflammation. And there's so many really simple nutrition and lifestyle techniques that we can use to reduce our levels of inflammation in our body. So I'll just tell you a bit about me, first of all. So the picture on the left, first of all, it was me in 2015. I was at my kids. You can see a big round face. I just look like a big swollen balloon. I was on a lot of steroids at that point, which helped with the moon face situation. But also you can see my left hand there, it's all puffy and swollen. It was like a big pillow at that point. You could sort of put your fingers into my hand. And my head's all inflamed, my hair's all a bit crazy, because at that point I felt so physically ill, I just didn't care. When you've got the cold or the flu, or you just feel that terrible, you just don't really care what you look like. Plus my shoulders were in so much pain that even holding a hairdryer up for a couple of minutes was just out of the question. And just the simple act of having a shower and drying your hair and getting dressed and all that stuff, when you are feeling this tired and this inflamed, all these activities just go out the window. It's just too much. So my hair is a bit of a riot, but to be honest, I didn't really care. I've got really curly hair anyway, so I just got some mousse, scrunched my hair and went out the door. And the most important was to see the kids and do the mum stuff. So I was really inflamed with rheumatoid arthritis in 2015, very, very poorly. Started on some drugs and things and started to get better. And then the picture on the middle is me out on my paddleboard a few years later, when I had made some nutrition changes, lifestyle changes, and also got my drug regime sorted out. And so this was quite an emotional day when I was able to do these things, because when I was that unwell, I never thought for 1 second I would be able to do anything like that ever again. And the picture on the right, it was me in Loch Lomond in the summer when we went for lunch with friends to Inchmurrin. And the contrast, hopefully I look a wee bit better in the picture on the right than what I do on the left. And the reason I got to this really was because I had reduced all the inflammation that was in my body. Now I don't have any swelling, I don't have any fatigue, I don't have any pain. So I've really got on top of my inflammation levels. So obviously, I have rheumatoid arthritis. So I suffer from chronic inflammation, and we'll talk about in a minute the difference between chronic inflammation and acute inflammation. So, but you never really hear, you're starting to hear a bit more the sort of relationship between arthritis and inflammation. So many chronic diseases, as I said earlier, can be related back to long-term levels of inflammation and autoimmune disease, which rheumatoid arthritis is one. But why is this? And why is this relevant to you guys if you don't have RA? So acute inflammation, like I said, so we'll talk about that first of all. So if you fall, or if you cut your finger, and if you're bleeding, similar to the picture here on the top left, then that's a serious threat. Your body's going, oh my goodness, there's foreign things in here, we don't like this, what is happening? So your body releases an inflammatory response. And if you cut yourself or a graze, you get a bit of blood, you get a bit of heat, and you get a bit of redness. And that is the inflammatory response. That is your body healing that injury that's happened. So the body releases these inflammatory compounds, they release, they heal the wound, and then the body goes back to being happy, and you carry on with your life. With acute inflammation, there's something that triggers that inflammation, whether it's a food substance that you're intolerant to and your gut is inflamed, whether it's constant levels of stress, whether your adrenal glands are constantly pumping out cortisol all the time and adrenaline, and your body's always in fight and flight mode all the time. Is it lack of sleep? Is it bacteria? There's a whole host of different things that cause chronic inflammation. And the response is similar, as in the body releases inflammatory compounds, because our body is really, really clever. It's an amazing computer, and it really wants us to be as well as we can. So it continues to release these inflammatory compounds. But the body is constantly bombarded so much by these that it never heals. It never gets back to the smiley, happy face that we see on the left-hand side, because it's constantly inflamed and in this hypervigilant state. So chronic inflammation can lead to lots of different conditions, and a few of them you may well, obviously I speak about arthritis a lot, so a few of them you may be aware of. However, you maybe never related to things like cancer or Alzheimer's disease or neurological diseases or cardiovascular diseases to chronic inflammation. So if we take neurological diseases, for example, this was in the news quite a lot this week with the rugby player Rob Burrows. Did his programme on BBC One. I haven't watched it, but it was on the news quite a bit. And they have related how the gut bacteria influences the gene that can lead to MND. And there's so many diseases nowadays that can be related back to the gut. And that's a huge breakthrough for MND. So even before people have symptoms of MND, if they can look after their gut and reduce that inflammation in their gut, even if they have the gene, they may, and this research is still in the very, very early stages, they may go on to not develop the disease. And if we look at Alzheimer's, there's more research into gut health, blood sugar levels in Alzheimer's disease as well, and especially in arthritis. Also, they can do fecal transplants now for arthritis patients who are really ill. So there is more and more and more relationship with chronic disease and chronic inflammation. So I mentioned gut health there a wee minute ago, and gut health is in the news quite a lot now, isn't it? Do you know, we're all sort of taught to look after our gut, but what does that kind of really mean? So before you start running for the hills, there's many simple diet and lifestyle tips you can easily add into your life to reduce inflammation. And the top one really is gut health. So gut health is extensively regarded as the future of health and well-being, and more evidence has been published around the importance of it. So, but what does the gut actually do? We hear this term a lot, and we can feel it in our gut and our gut health, but what does that mean? So the gut starts in our mouth and ends in our anus and includes all the digestive organs in between, including the stomach, pancreas, and colon. So our bodies start to prepare for digestion even before we put food into our mouths, as saliva is secreted when we smell or see food or prepare our bodies for its arrival. So I'm sure we've all had those instances when we're really hungry and you'll walk past a restaurant or you'll start cooking and you'll feel your mouth start to secrete saliva. You'll think, oh, my mouth's watering, I'm really, really hungry. So our body is so clever, it can tell when we're going to take some food. So it starts to prepare for the arrival of food so it can start to digest it. So when we start to chew food, saliva breaks down into smaller parts so it can pass down the esophagus into the stomach. So you maybe got told when you were younger, I know I certainly did, take your time and chew your food and enjoy it. And this was obviously good manners that I'm sure our parents told us, but also so that our body can start to break down food so it can pass into our stomach. So as the food passes through the digestive tract, it continually is broken down further, and some parts are reabsorbed back into the body, requires it, and other parts of the body are obviously secreted. So just imagine if you have got an inflamed gut, for example, and say you've got, I don't know, say an intolerance to gluten, for example, and you are continually eating bread and gluten-containing products, and your gut is continually inflamed. The purpose of your digestive tract is to break down the food so the body can take back all the nutrients that you have put in there and get rid of what it doesn't need. If your gut is inflamed, it won't be able to do that. So there'll be more toxins coming into your body and giving you pain, brain fog, fatigue, whatever that looks like for you. But equally, you will not be able to absorb the nutrients that your body needs to be healthy and to be well and to live the life that you want to live. So much of our nourishment depends on the passage of food through our digestive tract. And without fibre, it's impossible for our digestion to take place in a balanced way. So fibre is so important. and it's found exclusively in plant foods, and it's essential for maintaining the digestive system as it helps the muscles in the small and large intestine to work and move stools through along the body. It helps to get rid of toxins and other harmful substances that the body does not require and prevent them from being reabsorbed back in the body. And if you think as fibre really as a bit of a kind of a cleaning brush, really, that's going to clean out all the bad gut bacteria, but also help and get rid of toxins, but also help to the body to absorb all the nutrients that it needs. Now, if you think of a SAD diet, the standard American diet, which is more commonly what sadly we're eating now in this country, it's very beige and it's not really got a lot of fibre in it. Because if you look at the graphic here on the bottom left, there's lots of different colours, there's lots of lovely different whole grains, and you maybe heard the term to eat a rainbow. So to eat a lot of fibre really isn't that hard, but if we look at lots of different colours and lots of different foods, and that's really the best way to get lots of fibre into our diet. So, how's your poo? A question you probably didn't expect to have to answer today, and I don't expect you to have to answer it, although you're more than happy to share if you would like to. But we don't really, well, I, being a nurse for over 20 years, talked about poo quite a lot when I was nursing. But more and more now, we're really suffering with constipation and really struggling to pass any stools. So if you are at number 1 on the stool chart, really severe constipation, you're only passing little more Maltesers or little bits, you're really not having good bowel movements. You're not getting rid of all the toxins. You've probably got inflammation in your gut and not eating enough fibre, and all these toxins are building up in your body and getting reabsorbed back into your body. So that really makes symptoms like brain fog, fatigue, pain, your mental health, whatever that looks like for you, a lot worse. And then when we move up to mild constipation, and then 3 or 4 are normal. So what we want to do when we're moving our bowels is that, unless you seem to be a male living in my house and you seem to spend about half an hour in the toilet doing goodness only knows what, but I don't know. For normal people, just go to the toilet, do a poo, and then, it should just come out. There shouldn't be lots of straining, there shouldn't be lots of cracking, there shouldn't be a big issue. And then as we move down, again, lacking fibre can also relate to diarrhea. So you don't have the right type of fibre there to keep your stools together. And again, if your stools are really watery, the fiber's not brushing the inside of your intestine, so it's not getting rid of the gut bugs that are there. It's not getting rid of the toxins. And again, it's not allowing the body to reabsorb all the good nutrients that it needs to be healthy and to be well, and for your body to do the stuff that it needs and wants to do. Alcohol also impairs our gut bugs. In this country, I don't think we've got a very good relationship with alcohol personally, certainly not in the west of Scotland, and certainly not as somebody who grew up in the 90s and, had a nice time, thank you very much. But alcohol will impair your gut bugs, and it is a big part of our culture. Every celebration, every party, every birthday seems to have, a lot of it seems to revolve around alcohol. That seems to be changing a wee bit now. That said, there's been a massive boom in non-alcoholic drinks now. So instead of, sitting sipping a terrible Diet Coke, there is things like alcohol-free Prosecco, alcohol-free beers, ciders, not so much wine I've found, and certainly non-alcohol gins are lovely. So there certainly seems to be a trend in that. So drinking alcohol may also lead you to eat more processed foods than you are feeling hungover the next day, and might eat more junk food. So it's not just about the booze. It's about the lovely charcuterie board that your friends put out. It's about the crisp and the dip. It's about the, pizza on the way home after the pub. And then it's about feeling hungover the next day and all the junk food that can be associated with that. So if you, that maybe from a calorie point of view and a nutrition point of view, yes, there's some good nutrients there in the middle. However, they're probably outweighed by the alcohol and all the junk that you're having the next day. Sugar is very inflammatory. And I talk a lot about blood sugar balance with a lot of my clients. So if we follow, to start with, the sort of orange trajectory here, so maybe for breakfast, it's quite common in this country to have a bowl of Kellogg's cereal, for example, that's maybe got a lot of sugar on it, say Frosties, Sugar Puffs, for example. So you have a bowl of them with some milk, then you might have some white toast with jam, a glass of orange juice, and a coffee with 2 sugars in it. So if you think how much sugar and carbohydrate you've had in that one meal, and I think that's quite common for quite a lot of people for breakfast in this country. And then you're away to work quite happily, tra-la-la, you're all kind of buzzed because you've had your breakfast and you're all fine. And then you're at work, maybe it's 10 o'clock, this work's really stressful, there's a meeting, there's some colleague pissed you off, and your blood sugars are up here, so your body's going, oh, yay, loads of sugar and pee. So your body's released lots of insulin to push the sugar into the cells, because that's what biologically needs to happen. So then your blood sugars then plummet, and then you're down here because she's annoyed you, because she's not done her thing, tra-la-la-la, big story, and your blood sugar here. So then you're like, oh my God, I'm starving. Oh, so-and-so has brought in biscuits, cup of tea, coffee, whatever, brilliant. Loads more sugar, and then you're all tra-la-la, quite happy because your blood sugars are up here. Again, you have the insulin response, your body's going, yay, loads of sugar, and then loads of insulin's being secreted, and then your blood sugar plummets. Then you're starving. Oh my goodness, then you're really grumpy because you're stressed, you've got a meeting, whatever's going on, and then you've not organised anything for lunch because you've been too busy. So you'll nip to Tesco, get a meal deal, yay, loads of sugar, and this continues day in, day out. And this will lead to chronic inflammation and leave you feeling tired, sluggish, moody, irritable, losing focus, and all a bit all over the place. What we're aiming for with blood sugar is that you have this lovely little wave here, that yes, you have peaks and troughs because that's what should be happening. However, we're not having these big swings here, and that can purely be controlled by diet and adding some protein into your meals, less processed food, and less sugar. So we should all be, to aim for that lovely sort of curve, we should, and lovely gut health, we should be aiming for 8 to 10 pieces of plant-based food a day. Now that might sound a lot, and we're used to hearing the whole five a day thing, aren't we? But it was actually Tesco that made that because they needed to peddle some more of their fruit and veg. There was absolutely no scientific basis behind that logo. So research shows now really that we should be eating at least 8 to 10 pieces of plant-based food every day. That sounds a bit much, but actually, or a bit sort of, there's no way I could do that. Actually, it's not that hard because plant foods aren't just fruit and veg. They include seeds and nuts, so and legumes such as lentils, chickpeas, etc. So for example, porridge, we're moving into autumn now, maybe I like something warm in the morning. So maybe we could have porridge with some stewed apples that would already stewed in the freezer, or you had frozen apples or whatever that looks like, some sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, and flax seeds. And then for maybe a snack in mid-morning, if you're hungry, you can have some nuts. Lunch, we could have some homemade lentil soup with lentils, carrots, leeks, turnip, whatever veg you want to put in there. Maybe an apple after that or mid-afternoon. And then dinner could be chicken and vegetable risotto with onions, peppers, peas, and spinach. And well, to me, that sounds quite achievable. With some clients, when I first started working with them, that's just, too much, but that's what we're aiming for. That's what we build up to. So I think that sounds quite achievable, but as I say, we would lead up to that. So another thing that's really impactful and really inflammatory, apart from the stuff we've talked about, is long-term stress can be very inflammatory, both physically and mentally. Serotonin is a key hormone that stabilizes your mood and is secreted from the GI tract. So people with depression tend to have elevated levels of cortisol and reduced levels of serotonin. So cortisol is our stress hormone. As serotonin is secreted in the GI tract, and it's essential we reduce the amount of inflammation in the GI tract to ensure optimum levels. The body's response to so stress is the body's response to any kind of demand, whether it's good or bad. And we need stress in our life. If we didn't have stress in that cortisol response, we wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. We wouldn't do stuff. So that acute stress is a good thing. We need that, like the inflammation, we need the acute bit. The problem is when we go into a chronic stress response. And that is when it can be really dangerous to our health. So the habits of a stress-free life, well, if only it was this easy. So we want to slow down, we want to have periods of rest and restoration, and that is getting harder and harder to do sometimes in life. That is really important. If we look at how we evolved years ago and how different cultures live, who've got much lower rates of chronic disease than we do, routinely have periods of rest and routinely have periods of quiet and restoration, which in our culture at the moment, it seems to be getting worse. We don't seem to have that. We want to gain control of our life, which again sounds easier than it can be easier said than done sometimes. So we want to, feel in control of what we're wanting to achieve. Get enough sleep. Sleep has often been the poor relation when it comes to health. We know about movement and we know about eating, but sleep is so important. We need our brains to digest and get rid of all the stuff it's had to process one day to get ready for the next. Exercise. And exercise, I mean more movement. Exercise doesn't need to be a crazy HIIT class or whatever, it doesn't need to be that. It can be going for a walk. It can be doing some stretches when you're sitting in a chair. It's whatever, it's all about moving your body in whatever manner is best for you. And to live your life, to enjoy your life and to live it and to eat right. Like we spoke about, eating as many variety of different plant foods as we can each day. So my 5 top tips for leading a healthiest life as possible and an anti-inflammatory life as possible is to eat 8 to 10 colourful rainbow plant-based foods every day: fruit, veg, nuts, seeds and legumes. And to enjoy food. For far too long, food has been demonized and it's been all calories and restrictive and deprivation and things. And we really need to take a completely different look at how we look at food. Food is there to fuel our body, but it's also been there to be enjoyed with our friends and our family and our people in our world. We want to minimize your intake of processed foods and eat much more of a whole food diet. Want to relax every day, not just on a Sunday. And I mean proper relax. I don't mean sitting on watching the telly with one eye on Facebook or TikTok, but actual proper relaxing. Reduce your alcohol intake and move every day. Doesn't matter how. Doesn't matter if it's stretching in a chair, as I said, or if it's going for a walk, or if high intensity classes is your thing, it makes you happy, then do it. But move your body every day in a way that feels good for you.